Hello and welcome to Theme Park Information. In today's show we have got a review for Toutatis, located at Parc Asterix in Paris, France. This ride has just recently opened and I will be honest, it has opened to much fanfare and I also really enjoy it. It's a really good coaster, currently just sitting within my top 20. It has some really interesting features, some really good positives, a couple of issues with it, but nothing too major. Anyway, let's get into what makes it so good. And starting off with it is the operations. This coaster dispatches trains relentlessly. The queue is always moving. You always feel like you're making progress. It is very much a part of like Parc Asterix's philosophy, and it really shows on this ride. You just need to just march onto this thing. I also will say it is beautifully themed in its own land, really good interaction with some of the coasters and with obviously the queue line as well, and it just looks so good. It is really photogenic, it's a great colour scheme, train design is on point, the lap bar restraint on the Intamin coasters are so good, so comfortable, gives you a little bit of space to get airtime and stuff like that. Perfect. There's also a lovely little lighting pre-show when you launch, which I really like. It's those little details which I think make this ride so good. The first launch is pretty snappy, but nothing too extreme. It gets off to a good start. There's also a inversion at that first point, which is like it just hangs you upside down for like a second. That's also pretty cool. If you're sitting in the front, you do get a few really cool little pops of airtime. Nothing too serious, just like some some floater. As you just go over a few sideways airtime hills. Then you get to effectively the crowning jewel to this ride, and that is the multi-launch section. So originally you launch forward, and you hurtle along a bit of straight track. There's an airtime hill, which you do get some fantastic ejector airtime in. And then you go up the starting phase of the top hat. You just don't quite make it all the way up, unfortunately. You end up rolling back down it, only to be launched backwards over that said airtime hill. And there happens to be another one later on, which you also get phenomenal ejector airtime. But an interesting thing has happened since you first entered that section of the ride. There was actually a bit of switch track, which switches, is hence the name, from where you originally came from, with the first inversion of the station, to a spike, effectively, which is where you launch over this track, go up a vertical spike. Obviously you don't go up, you get pretty high up it, and then you drop back forwards again, only to be launched for a third time, and this time, again, the airtime on the two hills is phenomenal, and if you're sitting at the front, you do get some really good airtime to begin with, over the top hat. Sadly, there are some trim brakes on that top hat just after the peak, and if you're in row 1 to 5 or 6, they really hit. If you're in the back row or towards the back, they don't hit as much. It's kind of if you were sitting further forward in the train, if that makes sense to you, it kind of does slightly kill the ride's tempo a little bit. And it's probably the weakest moment of the ride completely, but it is probably there to make it so that the train doesn't put too much wear and tear on the track. It could be there to prevent any incidents with rolling back again or something like that. Or as I say, it could also just be there for a guest satisfaction sort of scenario where if it went through the rest of the layout, it might be too intense and stuff like that. But regardless, it is there. They are pretty strong. They do hit. But you do still pick up speed really quickly following them. There's a really aggressive turn, which will send you swinging to one side. And then a phenomenal stall where you end up just getting hung upside down for an extended period of time. That's really good fun, that bit as well. Great throw hands up in the air moment. Then there's another turn as you start heading backwards towards the station. A lovely little airtime pop on that section where the track kind of raises outwards, so you're banking, so you're at an angle, and then there's a little airtime hill, and yet you get a great airtime in that moment. There was then a more traditional, normal airtime camelback hill, which gives phenomenal airtime if you're at the front. And then I say there is a wave turn, which is effectively the track is banked at 90 degrees and is still fairly straight. That gives you really solid floater airtime if you're in the front. Doesn't offer much if you're on the back, in my opinion. You then go for one little final turn, which is usually at quite good speed, into the final inversion of ride, which has some nice near miss elements, and you're right above the queue line as well. You then have one final turn before hitting a couple of airtime hills into the brake run. As I say, this is, I think, a really strong layout. It seems like a good long ride. Some fantastic airtime. Not super intense, very rideable, really comfortable, glossy smooth, really enjoyable. As I say, I went on it 5 times in total, a couple of times at the front, once very much towards the back, and then a couple of times towards the middle, and it really doesn't really disappoint no matter where you sit. I personally would recommend the front most, but even the back and middle are really good rides. As I say, this is a clear 9 out of 10 coaster. It ticks so many boxes. As I say, it has great airtime, really good operations, really good theming, really smooth. Easy 9 out of 10. Well worth going to. So happy I waited for the park to build it before going to Park Asterix, and I'd highly recommend going to the park just for this ride. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the review. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.